Qool Hand Podcast, something you got to deal with. Welcome back to the show. I'm your host. My name is Q. We have a special guest on the podcast today. We're keeping it West Coast. West Coast been running the Qool Hand Podcast, as I've said before. So we got another DJ in the building, but I think he does a little bit more. So I don't want to just box you in and just call you a DJ. So guest, please introduce yourself.
What's good? What's good? I go by Nick. I'm also known as DJ Money in the Banks, representing San Jose, California, and West Up.
West Up. West Side. Yeah, West Side till we die. So, San Jose, California. I had to Google that because I'm geographically challenged, especially with the West Coast. So that is Northern California.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
It's Northern.
So, did you grow up there or somewhere else?
Yeah, I kind of, in the general area, I grew up in a very small town called Milpitas, which is basically San Jose. People who live out here know a little bit about it, but yeah, I grew up there and pretty much moved all around the general San Jose area. So yeah, I've just kind of been in this general area all my life.
Okay. So the general San Jose area. So in relation to DJ Easy, because I believe you guys are locked in one way or another.
Yeah, shout out to my brother Easy.
Shout out to DJ Easy, man. How far are you guys away from each other?
I would say he's in Fairfield, which is about like an hour and a half to 2 hours away.
Okay. Not bad at all. Not bad at all.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not super close, not super far.
Yeah. That's like now where I'm at in Pittsburgh. Like that's for us. That's like Ohio. Going from here to Ohio, 2 hours will get you to Ohio. So, but anyway. So okay, San Jose, California, and because I introduced you to what I know about you, what all do you do?
So I DJ. I also make edits, really just for myself, but I do put them out there on Bandcamp time to time. And I make beats periodically. These are three things that I mentioned that I do, but I absolutely rarely ever have time for them. But they are the things that I do.
Gotcha. And speaking of time, this man is a husband and a father. So those are also two full-time jobs. So appreciate you for making the time to be on the podcast. So
it's all good. I'm glad someone wants to talk.
Yeah. The DJ field, even the production field, is still something, I can do 1,000 interviews. I'll still never know it thoroughly because I'm not hands-on. It's not a hobby of mine. So I can always get some new knowledge and see everybody's different journey and perspective. So let's start with San Jose. Let's start with your upbringing and what life was like. So what were you doing as a little youngin, getting yourself into? What was the environment?
Oh man, well, I'm a only child of a single parent, and she had her hands full. I wouldn't say I was a bad kid. I was just a kid, like running around. I was huge into action figures as a kid. So any little toy, I had it. Honestly, I was huge in it until I was like in my 20s. So
Gotcha.
I was just a collector, comic book dude with the thing that they call black nerds. They call them blurds. I was like an OG blurd, like before it was cool. So, but I'm also like over 6 foot, so nobody messed with me like that. Nobody tested me, but I was so soft. I was so soft. Like I could have fell apart if I was tested, but no one ever did, so I was fortunate.
Yeah, the big stature helps. You kind of look like Debo on my screen, so so I hear you, and I like that you said you were like a black nerd before it was cool, because now it is accepted. You like anime, you like comic books. That is so, and it's a good thing. It's a good thing. It is so widely accepted now amongst the Black community. But
Yeah.
I remember there was a time where you liked that stuff, you were kind of like an outcast or
Oh
just
yeah.
lame or whatever.
I had nothing to I was a I was a nerd, I was a witness. I had nothing to really talk to kids about, like
Hmm.
and this is like the OG anime days where like you had to buy tapes, like you had
Oh
to
man.
search and find them, like they only certain little niche spots sold them, like oh yeah, it was rough.
So yeah, I picked up on that when I was doing my research, aka going through your Instagram, that you're a comic book guy, a superhero guy.
Yeah.
So like and once again, I am as plain as, like, I'm as boring as a box of rocks. So you have to, I'm gonna ask you some questions that may seem elementary in the
Hey,
comic
hey,
book field.
a box of rocks don't have bars like you do though. So like I think you need to give yourself some credit.
I forgot about the rapping thing. Yeah. I guess, man. I guess that's, yeah, I guess. Well, thank you. But so comic book wise, because you had a quote on your Instagram, and we'll talk about your name and everything, how you got to Money in the Banks and your
Mhm.
logo. But I saw something that said like every superhero has its logo or something like that. I don't want to
Oh
misquote.
yeah.
But like, who were your go-to comics when you were young? Maybe your animes, favorite superheroes, so on and so forth.
Oh man. Shoot, I could just show you real quick. Hold up. So this is my comic wall right here.
Okay.
Of course, I got Spider-Man. Um, got Batman and Catwoman. Superman was always a favorite of mine.
Hmm.
From when I was young. And if you look up here, these are actually pictures that my grandfather drew when I was a kid. Because he knew I was such a
Oh
big
wow.
Superman fan. And I found them one day at their house, and I was like, I need those back.
Yeah.
Because now I got a place where I could put them up. So
Yeah.
yeah, I was always the it was always about the superheroes for me. Spider-Man was big. Spider-Man was big to me because of the fact that like he would go out and save people and then be broke like right after. like, like he would have no money, and like in the Hulk was also a big. I love the Hulk because back in the day I used to have like a big temper issue.
Hmm.
And he was the first one to show me that like you could have a temper and still be a good guy. So like for me, like those are always the ones that stood out. Like I love Batman and Superman and all that, but I'm more of a Marvel dude.
Got you.
Mostly because they still live in real places. Like
Yeah.
there's New York, there's California. It's not like Metropolis or Gotham. Like
Yeah.
I can go in Times Square and be like, oh, this is where the Daily Bugle would have been at, like
Right.
where Spider-Man worked. So yeah, that always stood out to me. That was a form of escapism for me, like a lot as a kid, because when you're a when you when you're in a only child single parent situation, you go through like a lot. So that was my escapism, was the comic books. But it's kind of funny because a lot of them were going through some of the stuff I was going through, so it's
Hmm.
like I'm not really escaping much.
Yeah. 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 Let's talk about that, because unfortunately there's a lot of single parent households out there.
Hmm.
Now we had a single parent household. My dad was out the house by the time I was 9, completely
Mm-hmm.
out the house. But I do have an older brother, and we was cool for, we was cool for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
So what was your experience like being an only child of a single parent household?
So mine was kind of interesting because like normally in a single parent household, like there is no contact with the other parent, but my dad has always been in my life. It's just him and my mom weren't together. And so um you know, it still has its effect because you're being raised by the opposite gender that you are. So
Mm-hmm.
you kind of take on certain elements of that gender just because it's what you grow up and you see, you know. So like I'm a emotional wreck sometimes
Mm-hmm.
but you know, I also am a very good listener, and you know, and can be very caring, and that's what I got from my mom. Even though my mom was like super strict, like sometimes sometimes seeing her with my daughter, I'm like, who is this person? Like, you know, I'm like, who is this person right now? But you know, I'm grateful between me and her, at least one of us got her
Mm-hmm.
at this at this like chilled out time. But you know, I was fortunate because there were a lot of older brothers in the hall that took me on, like that, you know, helped me out, especially when I got older. They were always there. And so like, whereas I got a lot from my dad, what I couldn't get from him, I got from them. So it was kind of like I was never left alone, so to speak.
That's what's up. Thank you for sharing that. The one thing that you did say that I've heard before, because we don't have any kids, um,
Mm.
was the thing about like your mom being strict and then you don't even know who she is with your daughter.
Hmm.
So it's like it's crazy. Like I've heard that before. I don't know the psychology behind that. Maybe I
it,
don't know.
they get to give them back. That's what it is.
Right, right. They can be all tender and sweet and be the like, yeah, I'll let your
Yeah.
your mom and dad handle that. So
Yeah.
that's what's up. That's what's up. So music wise, because I was listening to some of your mixes,
Mhm.
and I believe you're older than me.
Mhm.
You are likely my big homie. So I was hearing some old school stuff, and I'm tapped in with the, you know, some older R&B for the most part, mainly 90s, but I
Mhm.
wouldn't call myself an expert. But I was hearing a lot of stuff that I just didn't even know, period.
Mm, nice.
So what were you listening to coming up as a youngin?
Honestly, I wasn't even really a big music person as a kid. Like we have the station out here was KBLX. They used to call it the Quiet Storm. I think honestly, I think all areas that have like urban music had a Quiet Storm type
Yeah.
of station where it's jazz, but it's like almost like jazz R&B fusion. So I'm hearing Anita Baker growing up. I'm hearing Sade. I'm hearing uh just a bunch of different people, but I'm also hearing people like Paul Hardcastle. I'm hearing um James Ingram. I'm hearing uh who else? Joe Sample, Bob James. I'm hearing like all of that on this. And so I'm not knowing who those people are until I get older, but I'm hearing it and it was my mom's music, but it was what I love too. And so um when it got to the 90s, um I was real heavy into that, but then hip hop started coming into play. And but I was a very late bloomer in terms of DJing. Like I didn't even start until like 2007.
Okay.
So yeah, so by that time I was, let's see, I was like 24 when I started DJing. Whereas
Okay.
like pretty much everybody else, like I saw Easy's thing, he's been DJing since he was like 11 or something like
Yeah,
that.
well, since he was a baby, that was unheard
Yeah.
of.
Yeah, and all these other DJs I know who are like, they got like pictures of themselves with like turntables and records when they were like 6 and stuff. Like that was not me at all. Like I had the Transformers, I had the
Hmm.
Silverhawks, I had the I had the toys. Like that was
Hmm.
my thing. So I had no idea I was even going to venture into that route until until I got into rapping, and then it led me on into that, or should I say, I was forced into that.
All right. Okay, this is some good stuff. This is good stuff because like just listening to, I only got a small sample of your mixes, and I don't know what I was listening to, but I don't know if it was produced by you or not. It was something with Nas's One Mic. I can't remember.
I'm trying to think, have I done anything with One Mic? Do you mean If I Ruled the World?
If I Ruled the World. Yeah.
That
Not
one.
One Mic.
Yeah.
Was that something produced by you? And
Yeah,
you?
I made that beat. Yeah.
Okay. Beautiful. Okay. So now it's coming all together. If I was to like just not know you, jump into your mixes, your production, I would just coin you as like, okay, this is a 90s head, a hip hop head. I know you saw Pete Rock and CL Smooth, hosted by Fife. Like, okay, this is a straight up hip hop head, knows all the stuff, and you still can be. But I would have just imagined that, oh, he grew up with a boombox on his shoulder. So what? So you start DJing around 24, and that came from rapping. When did you like kind of get into like the hip hop stage of your life?
So I really got into it around, I want to say 95, 94, sometime around that, maybe 94. I was like 11, and I think one of the first songs I heard was De La Soul, Me, Myself, and I. And that just blew my mind. I had no idea what that was. I was like, what is this? Like, and of course my mom being strict is like, don't listen to, even though it's like, it's me, myself, and I, like this, like, come on. But I mean, later on I saw what she was trying to protect me from, because I got into exactly what she was trying to protect me from. So, like, a little funny story is that when I was younger and I would watch music videos, I could swear that every time I watched a music video, it was the artist performing. So like, I would see these videos like 3 or 4 times a day and just be like, dang, they must be tired. Like, like, in another thing, I also thought, like, I had no concept of coast or anything. So I'm listening to De La, Tribe, all of that. I thought they were all from here. Like De La and Tribe sound like they could have been at Berkeley for all I know, like, because Berkeley is eclectic like that. So, I swore they were from out here, and it wasn't it wasn't until the East Coast West Coast beef that I really was like, oh, this is what different coast means. So then I kind of understood it, and I was very like, I was easy to get caught into peer pressure and stuff. So I was I was Tupac, West Side, like all that. I was like all that, even though I loved Biggie, I love Mobb Deep, I love Nas, I love cats like lesser known cats like the Youngsters, Naughty by Nature, and a cat who wasn't really known back then at the time, Jay-Z. Like, like, and I used to record like I got all these tapes at my mom's house of just music videos that I used to record off of BET and off of MTV. And most of them were East Coast tapes. So like, I'm at school doing the Tupac West Side thing, and then I'm at home doing the boot camp click East Coast thing. So like, that's really, my heart was in East Coast hip hop, because that was the first stuff that I heard. And when I later on would hear West Coast stuff, it's a different type of feel to it. It's a different type of game they're trying to put you on, and I didn't really appreciate it until like now. But I always loved E40. Like, no matter what, I always loved E40. And so yeah, now I'm completely forgetting what the question was, but yeah,
Same.
that's how I kind of got into that realm, was it was really from the music videos, because I wasn't buying CDs back then. I wasn't buying tapes. Like by the time I started buying tapes, CDs had been existing. You know, there was no reason to buy tapes, but all I had was a Walkman. So I had the first two DMX albums on tape. I had Tribe on tape. I also randomly had Foo Fighters. I had Third Eye Blind. Like I had a bunch of different stuff I was listening to, and all of that would later play on into the DJing thing, because now you can drop and mix and blend anything, but you gotta know the music first, you know. So
Got you. Okay, that was a nice thorough history, and it's interesting too. Like you mentioned, and you thought during the music videos every time it played,
yeah.
thinking they were performing. That's hilarious because I had like not the same thought, but just like a similar line of thinking. I thought what you heard on the radio and what you would hear on the music videos is what you would hear live, and I
Oh,
was
okay.
far from correct with that. But yeah, like it's just interesting how we think when we're younger.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
it's just that was funny, and it makes perfect sense like to
Mm,
think that way. But
yeah.
okay, so all of that, and then one more thing too. Um Being in a different era too, like
Mm,
not differentiating the coasts. Like we didn't have the internet, and you
mm,
got some years on me too. So like computers, Windows, Macs, smartphones,
mm,
like Google, I couldn't like just Google San Jose and get as much information as I did before.
yeah.
Like back in the 90s, like it just information wasn't as readily available. So like that also makes perfect sense, and also interesting to hear the perspective from you know, on the West Coast, and you know, it's just cool. So thank you for sharing that.
All good.
So rap wise, uh how long did your rapping stint? I like to think every young African American male raps at some point in their life. So what was rapping like for you?
Yeah, I told this story on a on another friend's pod, that you know, like as a black kid, you either had to, I think Biggie said it best, you either had to sell something or have a wicked jump shot or rap. And so like, you know, your interest is always going to pertain to what your culture is. Like,
Mm-hmm.
although for me it was different because I didn't really, like, I'm African American, but I didn't really have a mother who wanted me to go that route. So for her, my culture was the Kingdom Hall, the
Mm-hmm.
brothers and sisters. That was my culture. I wasn't even really like aware fully of the struggles that black folks go through until Black Lives Matter started. Like, I seen some things, but it never was like to the point to where I was like affected until then. So when I started rapping, it was more of me kind of venturing into not necessarily what attracted me as a black kid, but I've been watching these music videos for forever. I've been listening to the music now at that point for forever. So, you know, the the first thing I did was in middle school. There were some kids who were freestyling, and I told them I could do it. And then this is kind of embarrassing, but if you ever listen to the Souls of Mischief 93 Till Infinity album and you listen to a track called Make Your Mind Up, I stole that entire first verse and used it as my freestyle. And everybody thought I was like the dopest ever. And I was so like, I loved the attention, but the next day I felt horrible. And I was like, dog, like, what's gonna happen? Like, and Soul's the Mischief from Oakland, so it's like, what's gonna happen if like one of these kids is like, hey, that's my cousin's rap, now I'm in trouble. Um so it kind of got me to the point where I was like, I want to learn how to do that. Like, I want to actually learn how to do it. And so I started getting heavy into books, into like taking storylines and listening. So then I started listening to the music with the ear of, how can I do that? And so the first thing that happened was I started writing poetry first. And then I got deeper into that. I did a couple spoken word things here and there. But then I started, really getting it into rhythm. And a couple friends that I had back in the day, in another congregation that I grew up with, they were rapping too. So we formed a crew, and the crew was called Inspired Utterances. And if you know the scriptures where that's taken from, that's not like a positive saying, which kind of shows where we were mentally at the time. But so we would just freestyle, and it got to a point where I was like, well, we should write a song. And so we all started writing, and they're just writing about like eating up whack MCs and stuff, but I'm telling like a story. And at that point, I'm kind of like, okay, I'm a little different than these cats. Like, like I can write about destroying other MCs, but I'd rather tell stories with mine. And so pretty soon, like, we were all still cool, but the group kind of broke apart, which I think spiritually for me, I needed to get away from that. and they did too, because several of them, while some of them fell away, several of them changed their lives around and got stronger, so but I took that and I just was like, okay, I'm just gonna write different perspectives. I'm taking stories from anime and making like raps out of them, and things like that. And then I started I kind of knew a local artist in the area, and he was like, you should come on this website that I do moderations for, and it was called spitboxer.com. And they were, had a whole bunch of different rappers on it. And so I would post like some of my verses. I would do these little competitions and things like that. And then I had this I had this track called How It's Supposed to Be, and it was just talking about how hip hop is supposed to be. I just had everything in words, and this one dude was like, recording it is how it's supposed to be, like not these words on the internet. And I'm just kind of like, this dude, like, I was so mad. And I was like, you know what? Forget this. I'm going to try it. And so I had this horrible microphone. I had this beat that I found off of SoundClick was the page back then. And I just recorded it. And the dude came in the chat and he's like, that's what I wanted you to do. And I'm like, okay. He wasn't trying to get at me. He was trying to inspire me. So I'm like, okay, I appreciate it. And so that was like early 2000, 2001. So I just hit the ground running. I was recording like crazy, doing collabs with people on the website, some collabs here and there with the local artists I knew. And then a homie of mine in my congregation, him and another friend of his did like electronic music, and they had this slower beat that they made, and they were like, I think we should get some rapping on this, but we don't know anybody. But then somebody knew about me, and then they talked to me, and I'm like, all right, let's do it. So we recorded this song, and that was the beginning of my downfall.
All right, that took a turn.
Yeah.
Okay, so what if you can, what was the outcome of this recording of this song? What happened?
So it was cool. It wasn't there was nothing vulgar about it or nothing. Like, I wasn't really on that. If I used certain words, I had a reason for using them. So there were never any filler words in my raps. That each word meant something. So it got big, and it got like too big. And so like I recorded a few more songs with them, and then I kind of felt like what they did was they took the popularity off of what we did and used it to boost what they were doing. So they took what we did and then just started promoting their songs. In the meanwhile, I'm trying to get back with them to record more, but they're kind of like flaking on me a little bit. So stay over there. But they're kind of like flaking on me a little bit. And so I just decided, okay, I gotta just work on my own stuff. So I'm getting these producers who are like hitting me off with beats. So I'm like, all right, I'm in album mode now. Let's do it. And then I had this moment where I had like this like severe like writer's block. And I was just like, I don't know what's going on. I was a servant at the time, so I was pretty busy. And so something just told me, just stop, just delete your page, move on. You got other important things to deal with. So I tried to delete my page, and the website had an error. And it wouldn't let me delete the page. So I was like, all right, whatever. Moved on. I think I kept writing a little bit more. And then I got called in the back room. and it turned out that what we had done was a lot bigger than I thought. It had pretty much reached the entirety of our district.
Mm-hmm.
And I live, like, I was kind of in an area where, like, you know, some people would say, oh, that's talent, but some people are like, you're not supposed to be rapping. And so I understood it, though. I had my hand in it. So I accepted what happened. I had to step aside for a little bit. And that's when I stopped. And it wasn't easy to stop initially. Initially, it was like, they're taking my voice away. I can't, but that kind of got snapped by my mom real quick. Like, she was just like, you're not going to be one of them. So you need to just focus, like, get your mind focused. And so I just moved away from it. And for a few years, I was good, but I started feeling like I had some type of creativity I needed to get out. Like, I couldn't just not do anything. And so while I was working on that album, I started making beats on my own just so I could rap to them. And so around this time, I'm hearing more instrumental projects. I'm hearing more cats like 14KT, like Jay Dilla, like all these dudes who are making these beats that you don't even need nobody rapping on them. So I'm inspired at that point. So I'm like, okay, like, I want to do a little bit more with that. So then I start making my own stuff. And around that time, I also was like, I saw the documentary Scratch was the documentary, and it was about DJs and the DJ culture, and I loved it. And I was like, I want to learn how to do that. But I'm also like afraid, because I'm like, I don't want to do something that's going to start getting me attention again, because I've already been through this stuff. I don't need to go through it again. So I started learning how to DJ, but I didn't tell anybody. So I'm just, I didn't even really learn how to mix or anything in the beginning. I just learned how to scratch. And that was what I wanted to learn how to do. And so I just did that. And then I kind of, I didn't tell anybody for a while. And until one day I got kind of bored and I wanted to learn how to mix. And then I did. And then it's like, okay. And then we just kind of progress on from there.
Okay. Okay, thank you. That was a good story. That was a
It's been on my mind for a while, so I can recall it like that.
yeah. That's a good story, and yeah, we can dive into the actual you learning how to DJ. You gave us some of the beginning steps of how you got into it, but I was
Mhm.
thinking as you were telling your story about your rapping and everything and how it kind of got big, what year was it? So if you started DJing around 2007, I would imagine your rapping was in between like maybe 2003 to 2006, 2007.
Around that, yeah, like around 2001 to
Okay.
2005 ish, around then.
Okay, cool.
Mhm.
Um all that to say, like the temperature around, hey young lady, the temperature around hip hop and was like, okay, 2001, I think, was Mace still on top by 2001? You had like, okay, you had Mace, you had Cameron was just coming out, but he didn't start popping until like 2003.
Yeah.
DMX,
Mhm.
and then eventually like 2003 50 Cent takes over. So
Yeah.
like rapping like that Tribe Called Quest stuff, all that, I don't want to say soft stuff, that dancer stuff, that conscious stuff, that my
Mhm.
black sister stuff wasn't
Mhm.
wasn't what was popping. And
No, it wasn't.
even for myself, I was in second grade when 50 Cent started popping, and you start rapping, you're imitating what you're
What
hearing.
you're hearing, yeah.
uh and and just like the connotation around hip hop or a brother rapping was a
Mhm.
lot different. And then like it wasn't like we had a SoundCloud or a YouTube to just put your music out there and nobody hears it, you know?
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
it was like if you're rapping back then, it's to get a deal, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it, like because I don't know, I feel like some people who are younger, who are maybe born in 2010 or something, and they're rapping and there's no issues.
Mhm.
It's just like if you were a young man rapping back in your day up until when I'm a youngin, it was like you're rapping for a purpose, you're rapping to get famous. It's not
Yeah.
just, it wasn't looked upon as just like a creative uh uh
Expression,
yeah,
like a form of expression, yeah.
right. So you walked so we could run.
Yeah. It's so funny, like when I DJ'd a party with Easy last year, and I'm seeing all these young cats in the audience, and I'm seeing like parted hair, I'm seeing beards, I'm seeing grills. And I'm just looking, and there's a part of me that's like, man, y'all just don't know, man. Like, y'all just don't know. But then there's a part of me that's like, I'm so happy for y'all that y'all have that ability to be what you are and not be judged by how you look in terms of like just normal stuff. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, a little part in your hair, that's fine. It's not like you're running around with earrings in your ear, like, or nothing like that. It's not like you're running around with tattoos or anything. Like,
Hmm.
it's just your hair is a little big. You now can have a beard, like things like that. I I'm happy that the young cats have that. I just wish it would have came at a time when me and my hairline were still in agreement. Like, that's all I wish.
You still got a hairline. I could see it clearly.
Yeah, but it's not where I wish it
I got,
was
I
supposed to
got,
be at.
I got you. There's a reason why I wear hats almost every podcast. So I got you. Okay. So thank you for this legendary story. We got some ad libs by Daughter Money in the Banks, and shout out to Mama Money in the Banks too, aka Grandma Money in the Banks, for when you were going through what you were going through. For
Mhm.
she stepped in and was a mom. Like,
Yeah.
ain't no giving up, ain't no none of that. So shout
Mhm.
out to the
Yeah.
family.
Yeah, if she wasn't like that, we definitely wouldn't be talking. Like,
Hmm.
I I think about it now, like just like I was saying before, like how she is with my daughter, and I'm like, where was this person? I'm like, if this person existed back then this person wouldn't be here right now. So I needed that kind of mom, because I was a little knucklehead. It wasn't like I was out there trying to cause drama, but I was the type of cat who, if I didn't have somebody to nip it in the bud immediately, I'm just gonna keep running with it. Like, but I wasn't the type of person who fought back. I was like, oh no, I'm good. Like, you're mad, you don't like it, all right, we're cool.
Shout out to the family. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad I can learn your story. So,
Yeah.
scratching. When I talk now, I might be wrong because I don't watch my own podcast over and over again. But if I remember correctly, DJ Easy said scratching is one of the more difficult parts of DJing. Okay, so you can attest to that. And you learned that first.
Yeah. I learned that first. I'm surprised I stuck with it, because I'm not the best scratcher. Like, I'm all right, but it takes a lot of practice and things like that. I want to shout out real quick the Brolic Army DJ School, ran by Rob Swift, who was part of the Executioners DJ crew. That, when I was a part of that taught me so much about not just scratching, but the culture of DJing, what it originated from, the idea of how, like, how you make your music blend and things like that. And it takes a lot of technical skill to be a DJ, period. Like, I mean, I know in the world today it seems like anybody can be a DJ, but actually knowing how to do all the things that you can just click a button for the computer to do for you, you end up doing a lot better than some other people. So, like, you see these DJs who they have these technical difficulties and they can't get their stuff going, and it's like, oh, I don't know how to do this or do that or do this or do that. And it's like, back in the day, just somebody running into the table could mess your whole DJ setup. So, like, coming from that, like, I mean, when I started, the DJ software was just beginning to get big. So I started on vinyl. But I wasn't on it for like years and years and years. It was maybe like 2 years, and then I had Serato, and then I was doing what everybody else was doing, but with a knowledge of how to manipulate the vinyl. And that was important, because I always wanted to learn, how did they do it back in the day? Like, how did they do it first? Because, it's like, you want to take steps before you start trying to run. So that's how I viewed it.
Gotcha. Daddy duties. We support the daddy duties. You got to do what you got to do. So, and that's another thing too, because just on the same line of thinking, as a little side note, as I was like on your IG and everything, I saw you get the family involved. I saw, you were doing like a mix, and then the wife came in and danced a little bit, showing support for her man. You had, your daughter on the mic one day, and I just thought it was adorable. I'm like, this is heartwarming. this is heartwarming. So it becomes a family affair. So shout out to your family once again. We'll call them family money in the banks. So
appreciate it.
Oh, we appreciate you on the Qool Hand Podcast. So, because DJing is so popular now, like, I guess like the barrier of entry is not as difficult as it was back in the day when you got started. So, how long did it take you to learn how to be the DJ that you are today?
I'm still learning. I think it took a part that I kind of skipped was around, I was probably more active from 2007 to about, I want to say 2012. And one of my homies, his parents had an anniversary party and they needed a DJ. So I was like, I'll do it. They warned me ahead of time. They said, just be aware, there's not going to be a lot of people dancing. So I took that as a challenge. I'm like, that's not happening. Yeah, they weren't lying. There weren't a lot of people dancing. It was a lot of reminiscing and everything, but I did get people out there dancing who normally wouldn't, but it wasn't like a huge crowd. Hold on. And so the ego took a hit. Like, it took a big hit. And so I kind of stopped for, I want to say 7 years. Like, I was out of it. I was, so from like, I want to say is it 2015? No, like I want to say like 2012 till about 2020 I stopped. And oh my goodness, child. Okay. So yeah, I was from like 2012 I stopped, then the pandemic happened, and in the pandemic I started seeing all these DJs who were, so I guess that's another thing that I also got to say as a witness. Sometimes it's hard being involved in certain things when you don't see a lot of witnesses in that thing too. Mm-hmm. So when I was DJing in my area, it's very like, there's a strong Hispanic base out here. So that was not my favorite kind of music. Back then, I was very against it. Now I'm cool with it and I like it. But back then, it was like, no, that's not my thing.
And then Scratch the Cat was in Dad's turntable.
Yeah, our cat is always jumping on my turntables. That's what she's talking about. But so back then, I had a mentor who was putting me onto that stuff. But I didn't really have a lot of DJs like me that played like hip hop, R&B. Like back in those days, a R&B song, if it had a rap verse, you saw so many people leaving the dance floor out here. It was hard. It was rough. So when the pandemic happened and I started seeing all these people who are not only DJs and really good DJs, but they're witnesses too. It was like, whoa, like, so I want to shout out real quick, Jay Will, shout out Audio Kid, DJ I Chi, DJ Flows, DJ Danny J, Pantera Cali out here. They were all part of a crew called the Flight Crew. And they were doing a lot of Zoom DJ events. And I saw those and it just inspired me. And one day I just took everything out of, there's Scratch. Yeah, there's Scratch.
Oh, his name is Scratch?
Yeah.
What up, Scratch?
And his brother's name is Spin.
Okay. Scratch and Spin.
Yeah, okay. He's going to start freaking out. Don't do that. I don't need him to scratch me up. But yeah, I saw all of them and it was like, oh man, I'm inspired. So I took everything out and started like getting back to it. And, then I started linking up with a couple folks out here to do some things. And before you know it, I'm kind of like back in it. But this time I had to approach it with a lot of, what am I trying to say? I had to remember that this time I have a wife and a child. and my own and a cat. Yes. And I had to approach things differently because after the pandemic, like most people after the pandemic, the depression and anxiety started hitting heavy. and you start kind of doing things that are for your benefit, but you kind of get locked in this situation where you forget the other people that need you. You probably know you get hit with the anxiety or the depression real bad, you want to do whatever you can to get out of it. But sometimes you can't get out of it, so then you start constantly doing things trying to become like fulfilled from it. But then you kind of realize that every time you're turning to something, you're forgetting about your family. You're forgetting about what you're supposed to do as a family head, as you know. And that was a big struggle for like a while. And so once I got that all situated, I had to remind myself that I can't do every event. I can't always be there. Like I may have FOMO sometimes, and there may be months to a year where I'm not doing nothing, but I got to look at it like, hey, what's more important? Like these things come and go. Your family's always there. So you got to focus on that. And that's your fulfillment. That's what brings you joy. And so once I finally locked in with that, then it became easier to just root for the homies, just be like, hey, shout out to y'all. Glad y'all get to do what y'all do. And to not be like, man, I should have been there. I should have, I used to be heavy with that. But now I'm just like, hey, cool. I'm glad you got to do that. Like, like I'm doing my thing. I do what I can, so everything needs to have its own place. And that's pretty much what I got out of it in the pandemic. Was I rushed to it too fast, and it needed its own place. And once it got its own place, then I felt better about it.
Yeah. Having balance with anything that you love is hard.
Oh yeah.
So yeah. So thank you for sharing that. And going back to what you were saying about the event that kind of hit your ego in a negative way, which you had to check yourself on. I would imagine being a DJ is kind of like, just from the ones that I've talked to, it's kind of like being a stand-up comedian, where there's some nights where you're just killing it. And everything's going your way. Then there's some nights where the crowd just ain't having it. They just ain't feeling it. And just one of those things where it's like, all right, this was, they wasn't feeling the mix. They wasn't feeling me today, but we're going to get right back. Like that's a field that I feel like you got to have a super thick skin with.
You do. You very either you do, or you just don't do it a lot. you do it here and there with people that are gonna like be there and cheer you on, and then you don't do it like you don't do it too much. But no, you gotta really have like you can't have a super big ego. You gotta just accept it here and there. Okay, you gotta like go over there because you're jumping too much. Okay.
Ice cream.
Okay. All right.
She's excited. So you're back in the mix. 2020 comes around. You're getting back to it. You're inspired. You're doing your thing. So since you took that break and then you jump back into the field, was there like a level of like rustiness, or was it kind of like riding a bike?
No, there was definitely rustiness. I definitely feel like I'm way better now than I was when I came back. Like technology had taken so many different turns. Like, so a lot of my stuff was outdated, and I didn't have the patience, so I had to upgrade things real quick. And I mean, that came with its own issues, but I feel like when I was really when I got really into it, it was more like now I have a bunch of people around that I can turn to that can really help out, and I can talk to them and be like, hey, how did you do this? How do you do that? Like, and that's why I shouted out Jay Will a lot, because when I first started seeing stuff in the pandemic and people were doing streams and stuff like that, I had like no idea how to do all that stuff. So he really like sat down with me one day and but he really sat down with me one day and just showed me how to get my whole like streaming setup going. And so that like really helped out, because I don't think I really ever felt like I had like a DJ community back then. So that was also part of why I fell away from it, because it was like I could have used somebody to be like, hey, not every gig is going to be like super good. Like, you know, some of them you just got to enjoy the money you make from them and then move on. Like, but I didn't have that. So all I had was my internal self saying, oh, you're trash. You're, you know, and then before you know it, I'm gone for like 7 years. So, you know, it's like I told you the other day in the DM that like I'm my biggest hater sometimes.
We could be tough on ourselves, man. I feel you with that, like being your own biggest hater. So it's good. Like, I like that you have the community now, and you know, there's pros to, you know, things being more widely accessible, widely known, and just having you know, a foundation of people who can, you know, be there for you.
Yeah.
So how would you describe your style of DJing? What will we expect if I'm going to this event and they're saying Money in the Bank is DJing this event? What can we expect?
I guess I would kind of say, well, you might expect that, like, but I guess you could kind of say, just expect to dance, expect to enjoy it. I tend to go some really, really odd places. Like I may do this mix where you're hearing these like hip hop R&B vibes, and then I may cut into some 90s pop rock randomly. Like, you know, it's sometimes it'll work and sometimes it doesn't. Like like, you know, I I remember I did a stream where I mixed a Britney Spears song with who is it? Black Sheep, Flavor of the Month. And some people were just kind of like, what is this? And other people were like, oh, that's cool. So I'm just kind of like, hey, you may not feel everything I do, but just know that I'm going to have the most fun I can. And it's not that the audience isn't important. It's just that the more fun I have, the more fun you'll end up having when I start getting into that line of stuff that you like. Because I'm going to get there eventually. Like, sometimes I'll, you know, like when I did the event with Easy, like I was playing a bunch of different stuff and people liked it, but people went super crazy when I started playing like John B. They Don't Know. And I remember they lost it when I played Casey and JoJo All My Life. I had everybody out there singing. And I was like, oh, I got y'all. Like, I got y'all. But it was like the last like 4 or 5 songs in the set. And, you know, it like I had people dancing, but that type of reaction, it was like, you know, and in the beginning, it was like, man, I kind of wish I would have had that earlier. But I'm like, hey, how much better is it that happened at the end of the set? So now that's what everybody remembers is that moment of like, oh, he was playing some joints at the end. Like, so I try to find positive out of whatever I can. But yeah, just know that I'm somebody who is going to make sure you have fun, but I got to make sure I have fun first.
Yeah. Yeah. So what events do you do nowadays? Now I know you're not, you got responsibilities and everything and balance.
Mm-hmm.
So I know you're not out there every single weekend.
Mm-hmm.
But when you do pop out, when you do an event, what are you
Mm-hmm.
open to?
I'm more of like I don't always like to be the one dude responsible for everything. So a lot of my homies do weddings and baby showers and stuff like that. That's cool. I'll do them on occasion, but it's not my main thing. Like I mainly want to do like a set where it's me and other DJs. So I'm only responsible for my time. But I also don't mind doing like my own parties. Like my wife set this party up for me like a couple years ago, and even though some things kind of didn't work like how I wanted to, mostly because I was coming off of a real bad sickness at the time, but I still had a lot of fun with it. And I thought to myself, like, man, like, this was cool, but how much cooler would it be like if we did something like this again and I had someone else with me so that I can be in the audience enjoying it too. um and so like I kind of like being a part of the entertainment, but I don't need to be the whole entertainment. Like I'm very much like I'm very much like a go up there, play, hang out for a little bit, go home type of dude. Like I'm definitely not a I'll play for 8, 9, 10 hours. Like, no, I'm gonna be 42 this year. I can't stand that long.
I got you. Yeah. Yeah. You don't want to be the DJ who's up there sweating, drenched in sweat at the end of his set of a, 5-hour set. Cause I know like the DJing field, you do a wedding, you're up there for forever. I'm sure you get hungry. You got to go to the bathroom. I was like, more power to the DJs, man. Salute to the DJs. And I should have asked this question earlier, but let me just get this out the way now. How did you end up on your name?
So I used to work at AT&T for a little bit, and I worked there with a lot of people from like Antioch and Richmond and Oakland. Basically, like, if you don't know those areas, I work with a lot of black folks when I was working there. And one of them actually gave me that nickname. They used to just call me Mr. Money in the Banks. And I was just like, I thought nothing of it until I started getting ready to DJ. And I was like, okay, what can the name be? And then I was like, you know what? I remember people used to call me Money in the Bank. I think I kind of liked that. And the reason why I liked it as a DJ name was because I felt like it was a throwback name. It's to like DJs like DJ Cash Money and things like that. Like, I was like, it's like a throwback. It sounds like a name you would have heard back in the 80s or something like that. And so I was like, yeah, I like that like a lot. So then I just kind of went with it. And at the time, like, people's DJ names weren't as small. So like I wasn't like really an anomaly like that. But now it's like everybody's DJ name is like 1 or 2 words, and I got this like sentence as as mine. So, but it also makes me kind of stand out a little bit. So I'm like, all right, cool. It's cool. Hold on.
So I can hear it.
A couple more things. We can wind down here. Because I always want to know the pros and cons, ups and downs. What are some of the challenges you face as a DJ?
Just keeping up. Like it's hard to keep up. I'm not like a content dude. like this new era of DJs and content is like something really, really, I enjoy it, but I normally find like for instance, the other day I recorded a little wordplay mix that I wanted to put up. And I, because I'm like, who wants to just sit there and stare at me like twisting knobs and spinning, like who wants to stare at that? So I spent like a lot of time, trying to edit it and have all these cool visuals to go with it. And then it took me like hours to get this done. And so I uploaded just to have Instagram block it because I have a UMG song in there.
Wow.
And even though the song is a 3-minute video, but the songs I'm playing, I'm only playing them for at the most like 20 seconds. Like at the most 20 seconds. For the most of them, it was only like 5. And so to have that happen, like, real talk, I was like, I give up. Like, like this is annoying. Like, all I'm doing is I'm not trying to like cut into anybody's like revenue or anything like that. I'm just trying to show, hey, I'm a DJ. I don't get out that often, so this is my way of like expressing it and putting it out there. So like that's a struggle. Like to have this be like a something that like if you it's almost like if you're out there, if you're not out there, you don't exist. Like that can be a little bit difficult. But and the challenge of like just when you're in an area where there are a lot of DJs doing stuff, like you have to go elsewhere. So like I can't remember the last time I actually DJ'd an event in my city. Like it's always been like hour to 2 hours away where I'm DJing. And so like that can be hard too. But no matter what, everything I'm saying, like those are those things where it's like a wave. You're just kind of up and down. Sometimes it's really hard to deal with and you just don't, want to deal with it. But I think that's also the advantage of not being out there all the time. Like I have time to where I'm not thinking about it 24/7. So I don't have to go to have one event be horrible and then the next event I'm still holding on to, it's like, okay, I have that. Let me step away. I got so many other things. So many more important things I got to help out with. So focus on that. And then when you got the time for it, you got the time for it. A year or two ago, I probably would have said the lack of time can be difficult too. But it's all about how you view it. Like, it's the thing you like doing. It's the thing you love doing. But do you need to be doing it all the time? Like, can you make time for it, enjoy that time, and then go back to your life? Like, I had to get to the point where it was like, DJing is not my life. Like, I'm a whole father and husband over here. DJing is not my life. It's something I enjoy doing, but if it's causing disharmony, then I gotta step away for a moment, like so like I had to get to that point though. And so, it's been a learning experience, but all the difficulties in my opinion are minor because like I could have one set that I can't upload because of one song and then I upload another set and then it blows up. You just got to stay persistent at it when you can.
Mm-hmm. And what is your favorite part of DJing? What do you get out of it? How does it fulfill you?
Oh man, the crowd is my favorite part. Like I when I got back into it around the pandemic time, I could only because I also used to stream on Twitch a lot too. And while all that was fun, you don't see anybody. You see words on a screen. Like you may see a donation here and there, but like, and that played to the introverted side of me. Like the introverted side of me could accept that all day. But once I started doing stuff and seeing people dance to what I'm playing and hearing them respond and all of that, it was like, oh man, this is what I miss. Like this is the part that I love. Like as difficult as it could be, like I had a moment at the thing I did with Easy where like I did this transition that I thought really sounded good, and the dance floor cleared when I did it.
Oh, really?
But it was like it's those things where it's like technically it's sound, but how does it sound to the audience? Like, and I guess that's another difficult thing is when you're so used to DJing on streams, you can pull stuff off like that and not, trip off anybody. But when you do it in a live audience, if you cut from a fast song to a slow song and the transition may sound dope, but the audience may not have been ready to slow down yet. and so now, you're clearing the dance floor and it's like, oh, well, all right, let me change this up a little bit. That was my bad. But yeah, I love the crowd. No matter what, I love the crowd.
That's what's up. How do you feel? I got a couple more questions for you. How do you feel about the art, the craft of being a DJ, disc jockey, one of the 5 elements of hip hop? Mm-hmm. How do you feel about it being much more of a thing now? Because I'm seeing like the younger people that I follow, like early 20s and stuff, and they're like reposting Zach Fox and like, I'm not into DJing, admittedly, so I can appreciate a good mix, but I'm not watching Zach Fox mixes and stuff. Yeah. And I'm like, and I just noticed, I'm like, I ain't never see this many people into being a DJ now. So how do you feel about not people appreciating it, because that's one thing, but people getting into it more? This is a hard question to ask, but just how do you feel about that being like such a more of a popular thing to get into?
It can be a positive and a negative. Like, I feel like it's a positive because you're getting people who appreciate what you're doing, but it's also a negative because the way you can get in is so much easier now than you could before. Like my my setup right now, probably my 2 turntables and my mixer, when I first got them, it was probably like a total of $500. Now, what I have would easily cost you like $2,000 to get. Sheesh. Like, just off of inflation alone. Like, and that's the old stuff I had. The newer stuff I had is more like 3. Wow. And so, but anybody can buy a $200 controller and get into it and get crowds and, do all of that. That's cool. But what you're seeing less of is the time that people put into learning how to do these mixes. Learning that, yes, it's cool when the songs are in key, but does that transition make a whole lot of sense? Like, when you dropped it, did it make sense to drop it there? Or could you have dropped it at another time? Those are the type of things that you only learn those from practice. And it seems like people aren't really practicing as much because they can just hit a button and everything syncs up for them. And all they got to do is do this behind the, and it's like, it's like, that's cool. I'm not trying to be a hater, but it's like, where is the talent in that when everybody can do that? So like, like you have one dude who's charging you like this much money to do the exact same thing another person is doing. Like, there's not a whole lot of like talent in it as much. It just seems like it's an easy lick for people to get money. Like, and it's being pulled off by people who already have money. Like, that's the thing that trips me out. It's like these celebrity DJs, it's like they think they're hitting the lick for money, and it's like, but you were already like a millionaire before you did that, bro.
Yeah.
Like, you can tell the ones like Zach Fox who love the music, who, you know, just by how they play it, you know, you can tell it. Like, it may not be as obvious to some people, but it's obvious to me. Like, when it's like, okay, that dude really knows what he's doing. Like, he really knows that song in and out.
Yeah.
Whereas like other people, it's like they're just hitting a button. They're just letting it do it for them. Like, what's the difference between you and a Spotify like playlist? Like, you're both messing the people out of their money. So, you know, like, so you're, you know, there's no difference between the two. So, I just am like, if you're gonna get into this, like, if you're gonna get into this as a young cat, I'm not saying you need to spend thousands of dollars. Like, I'm not. Like, that's not fair. Like, the boundary shouldn't be how much it costs, but it should be the love. Like, do you like? For me, it was, I want to learn how they do that. Like, I really want to learn how they do that. For other people, it was just, you know, it's whatever their story was.
Mm-hmm.
What's going to be your story as to how you got into this? Like, what is your motivation? Please don't let it be money, because if it's money, you can go get a job. Like, you know, like, you can go get a job. Like, like, I got a job.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
I can
but
give you money if you want.
Tell her you'll remember that when she's an adult.
Yeah, I'll remember that. But, you know, it's just one of those things where it's like, I want people to be honest about why they're getting into it. Don't get into it because everybody else is getting into it. Like, honestly, that's almost kind of part of why I got away from it a little bit, because too many people are getting into it and then they dilute things. But you do have people out there who are getting into it, who are really, you know, in love with what they do, with their craft, with learning more and more and more. Like, I just say to young cats, like, if you get into it, just make sure you're doing it for a love of music. Like, my dude DJ Future, he goes by Smirk on Instagram. He's Easy's cousin. He's a young cat, but he's into it because of the love of music, and his love of music goes from his day to day to back in the day. And that's the type of love you need to have, in my opinion, to take this on. Like, you got to have a love for something, and it should not be the love of money. Like, it should be the love of the craft, the love of what you see other people doing. And if you want to learn how to do it, then cool. Just know that if it's too much for you, you don't have to continue. Like, sometimes it's at the point now where there are more DJs than there are fans, it seems like. And like, we can't all be DJs. Like, some of us gotta just enjoy the music, you know? So yeah, that's my little rant.
Yeah. No, thank you for that. That was perfect, because you pretty much answered another question that I was going to ask, which is, what advice would you give to someone who is thinking about DJing? And you answered that with the last question. Have a love for it. You know, don't do it to get a bag. Like, and it may not be as easy as a lick as you may think it is. Like,
yeah,
so
very true. Now, especially since everybody's doing it.
Facts. Like, yeah, you're not, it's not as easy as you think it is. So that's beautiful. I have no more questions for you, but I want to leave the floor open. If there's anything that you wanted to say, shout out, whatever, the floor is yours.
Oh man, I want to shout out Dirt and E-Man Splash Bros. My dude Qool Hand is on there sounding like he came straight from LA on that intro. I just want to shout out all of y'all, man. Like, the showmanship that you guys have, like you, Crowded Places, Jazzy Vaughn, that T plus. I went back in the archives for those interviews, man, after I heard the music, and like shout out to y'all, man. Like it's real inspiring to see. And so to any of y'all out there, man, just have fun. Have fun with it. Like enjoy yourselves. Keep on the straight and narrow, as they say. And that's it. If no one told y'all, shout out to y'all.
Yeah, shout out to y'all. That was beautiful. Yeah, shout out to all the creatives. Shout out to the West Coast. Shout out to the rappers, singers, poets, DJs, fashion designers, all that. So thank you for taking out this time out of your busy life schedule. So we appreciate you, and I speak for everybody who's listening or watching. We appreciate you. Money in the Banks. Do you do DJ Money in the Banks or Money in the Banks?
I'm at the point now where I just do Money in the Banks because I think the DJ adds like one more extra word to it. So I just kind of go by the one name, just the Money in the Banks. Like the DJ is superfluous, as my dude Selector would say.
There you go. So Money in the Banks, Qool Hand Podcast, the hottest DJ in San Jose, straight from the West Coast.
He said that, not me. I did not say that. He said that.
Get mad at me. I'm on the East Coast, and I don't got no money to travel. So y'all gotta come to me to give me the discipline. So hottest DJ in San Jose, West Side till we die. This is the Qool Hand Podcast. Something you got to deal with. Easy. And that's
easy.
It.